So on Zoom today.
All right. Did we see a recording? Sorry, I'm trying to record.
There's a button in there.
Yeah, and then it went away from me.
I wonder if you close the chat,
Yeah,
maybe that's.
there we go. Oh, I think we are recording.
Hey. Hello, everyone online.
Hello, everyone. So, it's truly an honor, to be here with Amanda. When I found out that she was going to be my successor after having, my solo show here and in this beautiful space, right? Super intimate. I said, oh yeah, I'm pretty familiar with her. She happened to come across, my radar prior to her, establishing herself here. She's one of what I say, the bravest artists that I've come across, right? I say that because she just set forth on her journey, right? And it can take a lot in order to say, hey, I have this talent, I really want to seize it, I want to nurture it, and this is what it looks like, right? What I think comes inherently, I'm not sure if you agree, but as artists, we're naturally, right, sole proprietors, we're naturally business people, contrary to like what people label us as, and they're like, oh, they're just these floaty, spirited folks that happen to want to create when inspiration strikes, and it's like, no, there's an administrative side, and we have deadlines that we have to honor if we want to be successful, right? And we're going to dive into a lot of that, right? Because there's a lot of parallels that we shared, and reasons why we may have taken the paths and journeys that we have at this juncture. So I just appreciate you for having this conversation with me tonight.
Yeah, thank you for also being willing to come here and sharing your insights too. And yeah, I'm really honored to share this space with you, and also all of you. Thank you so much for coming.
So what I found dope about your exhibit, right? I mean, just when it talks about bringing together humanity and what we are on one accord, but you have another great point about you is you acutely were able to dive into who you are, and then you let that very sharp perspective translate to other people. And so I think where I started from an objective standpoint in art, right? I believe that you may have started when it comes to the emotional, the evocative part, right? And connecting with people. I just wanted to see if people saw things the way that I saw it, and then, I would move on, and I had to grow into, oh, let me make sure that it actually resonates, right? Finding my voice, finding out who I am, and it took time. How did you end up stumbling upon who you are? Do you feel like you have a good grasp of that, or is it this continuous journey that you're wrestling with?
No, I think now, I mean, I'm 30 now, and I feel like when I hit 30, there was something that I don't know, just switched in my brain of, wait, I know who I am, and I think it took my 20s and my later teens to really stumble my way into figuring out what exactly I wanted to share with the world, and through my art too. Art has always been a space for healing for me, and just untangling these very I don't know, dark emotions that I had. For those of you not familiar, I would share work on my survivorship as a survivor of childhood sexual abuse and also physical abuse. And so, and right, that is really messy, and that can be dark and very complicated, and you don't really know where the emotions are gonna flow to. But I felt like being vulnerable and messy, even with my art, is what helped lead this path for me, and the other artists and beautiful community people that I met along the way, in sharing that journey of mine. And I think taking those, I would say, brave and messy steps was able to lead me into creating this space too, about humanity and about immigration in particular. I felt I don't know, this also felt really scary for me to step into this space, which, you know, maybe some people would argue, no, wouldn't talk about your survivorship be scarier? And I was like,
That was
no,
my
not really. I mean, they were both scary in their own way, but this, I felt like I had to tap into this part of my identity that I never really faced,
Yeah.
in the way that I did in my, like, compared to my early 20s. I feel like now that I was approaching 30, I've just been thinking so much more about my inner self, my identity, and my community and where I come from. So yeah, I guess.
I think that what you're describing, right? So you kind of are talking about different dimensions and different points where you had to push the envelope in order to open up and find new dimensions of yourself, right?
Yeah.
But I think the consistent accord that you're describing is you got beyond yourself to push you onto stages like this, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's where the beauty in it lies, right? So, and you just sharing your story and where your art may be coming from in the depths of your soul, right? For lack of a better term. I think that journey in and of itself is something, right? But then it's like, okay, well, I'm sharing that part, but then what does it look like? And what are the other chapters that I have to unfold? And then what are the spaces that are conducive to allow me to voice that, right?
Mhm.
And that's a whole nother scary spectrum that
Yeah.
you know, got to face, right? When it comes to the pieces in here, is there a particular one that kind of was the catalyst to it, right? I kind of know because of what we discussed, right?
Yeah.
But you know, if you want to share with everyone, what the name of that piece and like why that one, and then what were the other pressures that you were up against at that time?
Yeah. So I feel like the piece that I guess really became, I guess the word that comes to mind is like my home for this exhibit is the one called What Does It Mean to Be Human, which is also the title of the show. So that is behind Nahum over here, with the leaves and the vines kind of emanating from these hands here. And that actually wasn't the first piece that I made for this show. The first one was actually, if you look, turn even farther behind you, the screaming kind of head towards the back, that piece is called Disappearance. So that first piece I made actually came from a place of like deep pain and deep fear for families, being separated and not knowing where they are. And that's why that person's kind of like dissipating to this like abyss. And I felt like I first needed to start somewhere to like release all this like pain and suffering that I just kept witnessing through social media, through the news. And I felt like that was really important for me. But I feel like what does it mean to be human with like the leaves, like that kind of grounded me as to like trying to reconnect with, okay, like what does connect all of us as human beings? Like, and for me, I wanted to evoke this like imagery of kind of an adult hand holding like a younger person's hand or a kid's hand, because I feel like we all go back to family and like kids. And while I don't have my own children, I mean, I feel like I take a very sort of maternal role even with my younger brothers, and just I'm always looking out for them, and hoping that they have, I don't know, a better life and I don't know, more help than I did because I was the eldest daughter. And so that's kind of where that really deeply resonated and connected for me. And it just, I think, jump started everything else, where I feel like I mean, I can only assume, but my assumption is that I think we all care for our family members, our youth in our lives, whether we're related or not, and just wanting better for them. And so that's what I hope that when people see that piece, they can see. I'm hoping that kind of jumpstarts the empathy and just looking at humans as a whole, as our humanity in each other.
It did for me, like,
Yeah.
so for the marketing of the exhibit, right, and for that being the piece, I was like immediately, you know, like drawn in, right? I think you have like this diligence about your work, but this like really like clean layering and this freshness, right? to where the way that the leaves organically are like overlapping and then the shadows that are on there, it has this like really soft touch. So it's emitted from the grown arm reaching down to the young one, right? And that's what I was gonna tap into and ask about is like, you can tell, I gained the sense that you were looking to provide something, that connection that everybody can appreciate, right? Especially, in youth. So the disparity between that and like the clean, controlled look that you have there, very polished, right? And then you have the screaming piece there. And I think maybe we spoke about this, but with all of that raw emotion coming out, me, I'm like a fan of color, but also like rawness, and my favorite color is gray, right? So, that's why I love the walls in here. So, well, I can't give Cindy enough props for it, and Erica, of course. The slate gray is wonderful, but, speaking of that, and the way that the works, like, I know the deadline that you were.
Oh, yeah.
That you were, okay, so so one, with that piece there, were you tempted to use color, like a color splash for like emotions, like why black and white? And in general, with like all the colors that really bounce off of here, like you have this undertone of gray. Did you see the space before you started creating? Do you think that was in your subconscious while you're creating, or was that totally not part of
So
it?
I did see the space beforehand. I took photos of each wall and I kind of drew like little sketch thumbnails on my like digital tablet just to see what like ideas
So
came to me
fancy.
sort of. Oh, I got something somewhere. And then, yeah, I was trying to think of each wall having a question, and then I was thinking, okay, what imagery fits or what comes to mind for me when I pair those questions with the art. So like, I guess in a sense, I didn't necessarily think about the walls being gray because my work naturally, even my paintings before these that exist here, like I do a lot of black and white, like grayscale, like hands in my pieces. And I've often been drawn to that because I want folks to be able to see themselves within those pieces. But I also know I've come to realize too, that I think I also paint in grayscale sort of hands because I think even I myself was uncomfortable about like painting my own skin and like almost coming to terms with like my identity in a way. Which I think is interesting, something that I've pondered about now, and I'm curious if my next work will be more, I don't know, I'll play with color more, maybe skin tones more. But ultimately my goal with this collection, I think with the grayscale was just kind of like not jumping to an assumption, I guess, of what like people's identities are, because it could be anybody. Even though in We the People specifically, right next to Nahum, like I do purposefully do different skin tones because I'm trying to be more intentional, like, hey, no, like the people, we the people, we're all deserving of human rights, regardless of our skin tone and skin color or where we come from. So that one was more intentional about the tones.
Yeah, no, your intentionality definitely shows, right? And I think what's beautiful about the space right here at the Stowe Center, and one of those parallels is that some of the pieces, so in wanting to be a control freak to a certain degree, right? And again, to that objectivity, and I like to play with color pencil and then graphite, right? Because I could like seep into the details. So there were, black and white pieces with, like the James Brown piece that I had in here. It was like, it was this color splash, and I just had like an abundance of fun with it, but it was also tedious, right? And it was time consuming. And then when you are, that was over a span of time, right? But when it comes to a deadline and wanting to fill a space like this, you ain't got all that time in the world, right? So I think the beauty of like how you were able to balance different techniques, different feelings it was masterful, right? What we talked about off camera a few weeks ago was how your work kind of is indicative in your intentionality, what you just described about people seeing themselves within there, but then also the vulnerability to say, I'm kind of unsure about me placing like the skin tones down there, right? And like, what does that look like? And I'll be curious over time if you'll grow into that. But what you remind me of is like, one of my favorite artists now is like Amy Sherald, right? Who did the portrait of Michelle Obama. And she uses like a lot of grayscale, right? But you can tell because of the features that they're Afrocentric, right? And that there's this natural segue, I think, going into what we traditionally see within museum work of saying, oh, okay, well, this Eurocentric type of work, it fits because of the timestamp that black and white can give, right? That a grayscale can give. Because, what I often talk to students about in like drawing classes is that, hey, when it comes to grayscale, not only can you give, of course, the value, the value scale, but you can also denote time depending on the texture, the way that you apply it, the medium that you might use, right? So when we go from the hands here that have the pop of the green and the color that's in there to the flag in that gripping, right? As I can almost place a timestamp coming around to it. You are able to capture different times. So this is more contemporary. That kind of gives me a shot back to like maybe the 70s or the 80s, right? We have the screaming piece, very, Jackson Pollock like, right? And that expressionist. And then you have this that it bounces off to, again, more contemporary and more new age. But then you have that the like the marbleized background that's there. What was the technique that's here? What are we doing there?
For the We the People.
Yeah, for We the People.
For We the People.
Yeah.
So that piece, actually there's a few paintings in this space that I use the acrylic pour technique.
Yeah.
So the acrylic pour pieces in particular are We the People, Disappearance, and Ancestral Roots, which is the roots one where there's like a side profile of a face that's hidden within the roots. And so acrylic pour for me was a technique I started to get into during the pandemic. Everyone had a pandemic hobby during the time, and for me, that's what it was. But it was also a tool for me to get out of the rut that I was in of like full on art block. I was not creating anything because I was such a perfectionist, and I felt like everything I had to draw had to be this like amazing, I don't know, thought-provoking thing. And acrylic pour was just like this beautiful, fluid, abstract, fun.
Forces you to let it go.
Right, it forced me to let it go. And, I did learn over time that, oh wait, there is a little method to the madness here. There is some control to acrylic pour, which maybe kind of goes against what you should be doing with it. Well, actually, there is no rules, right? So whatever. But, and then that actually helped me like warm up to, wait, what if I actually use this and like let it dry, or maybe don't let it dry, depending on the technique, and paint over it with, so like warm myself up to it. And I loved kind of needing to like think compositionally what would make sense with these abstracts. And also I kind of wanted to like let the world know actually acrylic pour is an art, because there was a lot of discussion online that like there were festivals declining acrylic pour artists, or because they just don't see it as a form of artwork. Because they see it as, oh, you just pour paint on the canvas and it's done. But there is a craft to it.
What's dope about that too, see, I tried to refrain from cussing tonight. But I love that, right? Because you're diving into the psyche of the avant-garde, right? Of like what we go through as creatives by saying, hey, I can identify this technique or maybe something that might be taboo, whether it be subject matter or approach to a piece, right? And you said, let me give it a try, right? And let me experiment. And you're like, oh my goodness, wait a second. I gotta slow this down because there's something that's here, right? And digging for the gold, digging for the treasures and the diamonds, right? And then you also pair that with the sound technique that people can look at and say, oh, there does take a technical skill in order to accomplish that, right? So we know as artists, right, that throughout history, what's the age-old tale? If you can convey hands, then you can pretty much do anything, right? That's what is often said. And so you were able to convey and you use subject matters like hands that are strong within and of themselves, right? But can be, you press the technical boundaries of there by saying, hey, I can convey this. Oh, by the way, the backdrop is going to be acrylic poured, right? So what do you think about that, right? And it's like, hey, right, you can't tell me nothing, right? And so I love it when creators can have this juxtaposition of like flexes in there to challenge the status quo. So that's what you did within that piece alone. My favorite, right? You already know is how did you, and what sequence did you get to the one with the treehouse and like the uprooting of the American dream?
Yeah, so that one was actually near, it was near the end. I think it might have been like 3/4 of the way into the collection. I did have this idea of like a house like in a tree, and then I think as I started painting, I was like, I don't know if I want to do a whole house. I was like, maybe like a tree house. That probably makes more sense. And then as I was painting it, I was like, if we were to take off those are actually popsicle sticks that I glued onto the canvas. But if you remove it, you can actually see that I did start painting a tree house. And I remember I was sitting in my living room art studio, and
This is in the living room largely?
yeah, mine's like half of the living room, and I got like my little living room TV in the corner, so.
I primarily in my bedroom, drives my wife
Yeah.
crazy. She's patient with me, right? I got stuff like lined up around. I have a space downstairs in the basement, but I'm like, I like to just stare, you gotta stand up, you gotta go.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's all good. But I remember I was painting, and I think my husband was sitting on the couch, and I was like, Andy, do you think if I use these popsicle sticks, and do you think that would work? And he was like, I mean, maybe, I don't know.
And it's like, real quick, and Andy's a creative in his own right.
He does toy photography,
Right,
yeah,
right.
like action figure toy photography.
So you're bouncing off of somebody that can, see a vision.
Yeah, he's
So
been dioramas and
yeah,
stuff.
so when you did, and sorry, I'm just curious on the
Yeah.
thought process within there, it's like, when you weigh in on your significant other, anybody that's observing, like, how long did it take for you to be like, do I wanna ask this opinion, do I wanna? Or is it a knee-jerk reaction, it's like, nah, I got you, I gotta ask, because I really don't know, I need some bearings, right? Does it take you a little while to get to that point?
I don't think so, because it's just like, I'm in the moment, I'm in the process, and then, like, even if I'm working on like a commission for a client and he's like in the bedroom, I'll just walk over and be like, what do you think?
You're so good. Oh, you're so good. I'm terrible because I try not to ask. So what's crazy is I do a beeline, I skip over my wife. I try to see if she's distracted, and then I go grab my 10-year-old. Right? And I'm like, Quincy, come here. Can you let daddy know? And so then I finished asking him, like, so what do you think? You think that I should use this color? But as a matter of fact, so the James Baldwin, so Quincy picked the pose when Baldwin was in here, right? And I asked him, I said, what do you think? I'm thinking about going with a more pensive area, because he said, well, daddy, what does he do again? He's a writer, right? And I'm like, yeah, he's a writer. He said, well, it takes a lot of thinking in order to do writing, so he should be thinking. Right, I said, yep, makes perfect sense. But I said, but he could be very direct. So what do you think about him staring at you and inviting people in? He goes, no, he needs to be thinking, and the way that you can have, I said, oh, okay, cool, yeah, that's enough, you can go back. Right, but then my wife would say, oh, you just go and you run out. So you value our 10-year-old's thoughts more than ours, so I'm curious, keep that collaborative spirit. That's why your love's going strong. Pray for me. I learned from you. I tell you, great. Yeah, sorry. So you get into the popsicles.
Oh, yes, the popsicle sticks, which actually, it's funny, the only reason I have popsicle sticks, and that is because I use it for acrylic pouring. So I use it to stir my paints for the acrylic pour. So I just had like a box of popsicle sticks like on the kitchen table. And I was thinking, wait, like that could be kind of cool. But the thing is, I needed an X-Acto knife to cut the popsicle sticks to be thinner, and that was my barrier. I was like, do I really want to cut?
Right, all of these.
And Andy, my partner, was like, yeah, I mean, I don't know, that does sound kind of annoying. I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, maybe I won't do it. And then it was like maybe 5-10 minutes passed, and I'm like, I'm already cutting.
Yeah,
I'm not
cutting.
cutting. And my fingers were hurting for a couple days because I'm someone who I don't like to spread things out, take my time. I'm like, no, I'm getting this done, like tonight or tomorrow, like, so my hands are hurting and I'm chopping away. Started gluing it and I was just like, I'm in love with this. This is amazing.
So you're a fishy, you just go right into it. Do you clean up your mess?
No.
I gotta ask.
No, sometimes my parents have only come to my apartment a couple times and they've joked that it's like you gotta jump around, you gotta hop around because the living room art studio, like when you walk through the door, it's directly to the right. So like sometimes it's spilling out. Walk away. But yeah, I try to tidy when there's company.
It just means that there's blessings that are running, that are flowing over, right? So then, do you have any like oil paints that you use in there? Anything that's like fuming?
You know, I bought oil paints and I've never used them because I'm so scared.
Yeah. Why?
Because of the fumes. They say it's like cancerous or something. But then I meet people who are like, nah, I dig my fingers in there and I don't even open the window. It's fine. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do.
So do they have cancer?
I don't know. Why do I say Please, I don't want to because the colors look so rich. They look buttery and creamy and I'm like, wow, that looks amazing.
It is, it's wonderful, you know, but it's funny too because of the different modes. So me, I'm slow. So that's why, you know, in the procedure, you're like, you know, I work with acrylic, I get down to business, Dave. I get down to business, I'm like, God bless your soul. I'm like taking my time, floating around, you know?
Yeah.
So on the drive here, I was thinking, it's like, damn, gotta ask them in. So do you, so with certain, I consider my process at times almost like method acting, right? So, and that's why I was, Malcolm's great ideas, like, you ever hear like director on director, actor on actor? I'm like, oh, this will be great. This is wonderful, wonderful idea, right? So curious, so with the James Baldwin pieces, the one I've kind of like felt strongly, maybe shed a tear. The James Baldwin one, I was boo-hooing to a certain degree, and I was like, oh, I have a moment. My family is gone, they were on the left coast primarily, with the exception for our 10-year-old he was off playing video games and doing stuff. So I had a moment to myself, right? So do you ever have those out-of-body experiences when you're creating one? And then two, the other one that's a little lighter is, do you talk to yourself when you're creating?
Okay, so to answer question number one, I have found in the moment, I don't necessarily get like emotional, but the times that I've made videos about my process and I'm like narrating over it and I post like, I don't know, on Instagram or something, like, and that's where my processing starts to happen. And I feel like a loser sometimes because like I'll watch the reel over again and I'll just start crying. And you know, for some of you who might not know, earlier on in my like, I don't know, kid art journey, like I did music videos out of anime. Like I would cut and splice videos with music, and my goal was to like evoke emotions through like film. And I wanted to be a film director. That's actually what I wanted to do. And then my computer crashed like my junior year of high school. And I was like, well, I guess I'll take an AP art class. We'll see how that goes. And then I just stuck with it. And the video editing kind of like fell to the wayside. And I think it's interesting that I'm thinking about how the out of body experiences come when I kind of like document and then force myself to almost do a video journal
Yeah.
of it, and then that's when I like tear up.
And it still goes into that, you started from an emotional standpoint of that healing, right? And
Mhm.
that wanting to really like face what it is. So for me, that's why it's tough for me to like, you're great at marketing, you're great at telling your authentic story and conveying that, right? Whether it's through social media, right? And then you look like, I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's gotta be having a blast, like, it's having fun, right? For me, I'm like, oh, do this? I think I gotta edit this shit. That's what I think
Yeah,
after like.
it is a hassle. It is a hassle.
Yeah, but that's your origins and where you started. What's interesting too is like, you just weren't doing it haphazardly, right? You were doing it from the standpoint of wanting to create a new feeling based on a medium that was already like, it was already there. So you go, okay, how am I gonna chop this up and how am I going to have the right, theme and soundtrack that's going to connect, right? And so so because you mentioned doing that almost in like the end processes,
Mhm.
right? Or when you're reflecting on it, do you think that you're going to like, right, so you have this powerful video here, do you see yourself like really blending those out and like that, because you pretty much left the video.
Yeah, the only
Editing.
times I do it, it's like if my friends get together and are like, let's do like a collaboration with this like anime music video thing. And but that it's been years since I've done it. But this just happened to be at one of my previous jobs, I got tagged in to do a digital storytelling workshop, which is a nonprofit over in California, called Stowe Center. And it was just like a perfect excuse to like, I don't know, dive deep into storytelling, looking into my identity. I ended up doing two videos. This was one of the two. The first one was about a testimony that I had done to remove the statute of limitations here for sexual assault crimes towards minors. And then this one, of course, that you've witnessed. And yeah, I didn't know that this show was gonna happen because I made this video, I think 2 years ago. And then once I was talking with Erica, we had our little planning of what the show was gonna be, I was like, wait a minute, I have a video that can fit perfectly in this space. And otherwise it just would have been unlisted on YouTube. Like,
In the climate that we're in to
Right.
tell this story,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah, I was like,
That's, look
and
at
it was
God.
scary. It was very scary. I mean, I would ask anybody. I was terrified to show my parents the video.
Really?
It was.
What was your apprehension?
Well, to be transparent, guys, my parents voted for a certain somebody.
So you
And-
see how you're brave? Yeah, my parents, I've been treating them like children right now. And TLC said, I don't know. I have no idea, right? You know, to each their own, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I've been new that we stand politically in very different places, and I think I try to understand where they're coming from, and I try to educate, I try to inform, and so with this exhibit coming, that was another fear that I had of like, oh, are they really gonna support me through this? Is it gonna be fake support, or is it like, are they gonna get it? Are they gonna dismiss it? But when it came to this video, I edited a version that didn't have their faces in it, and then I had one that did. And I was trying to decide whether I would have the courage to show them the video before this exhibit went up, to ask them, do I have your consent to have you in the video, knowing all the information that I knew. And to my surprise, so I only had the confidence to ask my mom before the exhibit started. And then, and she loved the video. I cried a little bit with her because she was like, you don't need to prove yourself to anybody. Like, you're a Latina, like, don't worry about that. And I was like, oh, okay, Mom. And then, my father, I invited him and my stepmom to come to the space, and I was like, oh my God, so they're walking through in the video. plays, I'm like tearing up behind them. I'm just like, oh God, like this could go really bad. But my dad turned around and he was like, proud of you, Amanda. All right. And he's like, I gotta go or I'm gonna cry. And I was like, and that's what I'm proud of myself for that. And I'm happy that, they came to this space and took it in. And while we may not always agree, on things politically, I could see that they saw their story,
Right.
within that
And they saw that you took the time and the care and the craft work, the craftsmanship in order to bring it to life, so they could see themselves reflected in it, right? And then you and adult men, because our parents and our elders and our family, quite frankly, even if they're younger than this, they see it sometimes in a certain way, right? And so they're captured within there. So I think that with like the black and white imagery, you got the video, they're telling a raw story, you're sharing your truth in such unabashed way is powerful. So there's that. While you were talking about it, right? And again, that courage, your ability to, so I always say, and I talk to students about this in the advising capacity and drawing capacity, that's why I love art, right? Is that you come to grips if you push yourself in certain ways. And there's this layer of family that's in there. So you get through yourself in that almost that imposter syndrome of like, well, yeah, no, I am an artist. Yeah, no, yeah, I do art. Yeah, I do this, right? Then you gotta carve through the fact that other people that you love and you hold so near and dear, they may not agree with your approach or what you're doing for a vocation, or take it seriously or so, until you come to a place like this, right? And so then you see yourself and it's like, oh, so the way that you were describing your father in in both parents, but especially your father though, and that sense of validation that you get. So it's like one thing, I think those tears when you finish some work or you're going through like we just described, and it's like, okay, yeah, you have these intimate, intricate, and these intermediate like these spots of these benchmarks of approval and affirmation, right, that we just have going through the process. But then I think what you talk about is that litmus test of your family. And sometimes, and correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes that means more than even like public reception like this, right? Where, and I love everybody for coming, sharing and but it's like, when your father sees a certain thing, it's like, oh, this is what you do, oh, and it resonates, yeah, gotcha. So like, my father came in here, and and my dad's 6'7", so his stature is like, so I look up to him in all sorts of ways, right? He's like my hero, right? Literally and figuratively, right? Don't ask what happened to me when it came to my head, it was my mama's fault. My mom, that part, right? But he comes around, he's like looking around and you get that sense of like, oh, okay, yeah. I can revere you in a different way. You are doing what God has bestowed you. And somehow I'm in like my father is not, it took a while, like he's not a museum goer like that. But what's crazy is that he recently seen like a Rashid Johnson, and like he goes, man, I'm starting to get this stuff now. I like this. And it's because of, I think of us, right? Of saying, hey, it's out there, you can connect in a certain way. And one of my goals as an artist is to show folks who don't consider themselves collectors, like you just haven't stumbled upon the right art. That's all, right? So like, even for your exhibit, when I saw, We the People, and I said, well, I got to have that, right? And I think that it's your story and what it means, like for my wife and for especially like my daughter who has an indigenous background, right? So Native American, but and Mexican, right? And then you got the Europeans, and so she could pass in certain ways,
Mhm.
but she also, right, she's like, nah, as she's coming into her own, if I put her business out here like this, she's gonna be like, hey, you ain't supposed to be saying all this. But that's when I came in here, I saw her through you. And I said, oh, yeah, nah, this is what it's about, right? And it's just, what does it mean to be human when, as a Black man, right? As I can see myself and you can gain the sense of connectivity and empathy because you told just such a pure story through this, it got me to think about my other loved ones that can identify, say, oh, this might be a piece of what my daughter might be feeling, what my son might be feeling, right? What others who I've grown up with, what my man Julio might be feeling. He's like, man, everybody expects me to be speaking Spanish, man, and I might be looking a certain way, but I don't. So there's a certain pressure that might come along with it. Some people who do, and you don't expect it, they come out of nowhere like, man, I didn't expect this from you. I say, well, yeah, it's on you. Yeah, this is my background, right? So I'll be curious if there's any other like challenges or benchmarks that you have in mind as an artist that you're like, I want to take this down. Like, okay, I think I got some validation from my family and from my loved ones as a creative. Are there any other avenues that you have on the horizon or that you're thinking down the line that you're like, I would love to do this?
So I've been doing this like full-time artist journey. I think I'm approaching my third year, because I quit in January 2024. And I have found, in the entrepreneur life, right, you're kind of busy doing commissions all the time, commissions, right? And that's why I was so grateful for this fellowship opportunity, because it provided me the space and the funds to be able to focus on creating a personal collection, and also first time ever exhibiting like a solo show, like in a proper gallery space. The times I've had before, like it was just like a mishmash of all different types of paintings, like in a cafe, which, of course it's cute,
Yeah.
but like this is a very different, as you said, like my stepfather came in here and he gave me the same speech, like God gave you this gift and and I was like, well,
Yep.
okay, where'd that come from? And because I think he could see that,
Yeah.
oh, this is a step up, like, and so I think about, the longevity of me continuing to do this work. I want to be able to keep working on my craft, keep creating more personal pieces. Also just trying to apply to more art shows in general. I've not really focused on applying to galleries. One, because I feel like my pieces don't necessarily always align with the theme. Like, no offense to anyone that wants to paint oceans and flowers and everything. But it's hard to find a gallery that's exhibiting a theme that is more serious, or real life like things.
Or provocative, right?
Yeah, and there's some,
Yeah.
but like so I want to explore further into like what galleries are out there to kind of push my artwork to more, I guess, like a larger audience, so that I'm not solely posting into the void that is Instagram and TikTok, which is great. It is great. But yeah, just continuing to foster that while also balancing that with my business stability and like commissions and all that.
Talk about it. So when it comes to like balancing the administrative side as an artist, commissions, making the dollar, right? We live in a capitalist society, right? So you gotta eat, you gotta pay rent, right? You gotta do what you do, right? Exactly. But at the same time, there's this fine balance, which is like growing your voice, right? As somebody, like I mentioned, I work slow, right? I take my time. That's the beauty in me, someone in my like advising role in space. I'm one of those who I've never had a job or a gig that I really had like a strong disdain for. I'm really like easygoing. I love everything, but that also poses problems, right? And I know that we both come from non-traditional backgrounds when it comes to like we didn't finish our art degrees, right? Like,
Yeah.
there wasn't anything that we did, right? We come from largely like social like, I'm a psych undergrad major, I'm a
Me too.
master's business management, right? And it's like, uh, what, how do you, how do you find time to carve out your business acumen, but then also devoting yourself to the things that you really care about and that you want to give to the world?
I guess I feel like I'm still kind of figuring that out. I mean, I do a lot of like my business administrative boring stuff during the day because I know that's when people are like looking at their emails and stuff. And then I feel like the nighttime is usually my creative brain. Like, I don't know, because I feel like if I have to worry about, "Ah, I gotta make dinner soon, or I don't know, do these chores, that's all during the day. And I feel like if I have a thing that is happening, I don't feel like I could go deep into my creation mode. I want there to like, I just want to be painting up until like 1:30 in the morning, and then be like, oh, I'm tired. I guess it's time to go
I
to
guess
bed.
it's that time to retire.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the tough thing, like, I know that even coming out and even us having a conversation, although I think it's probably different for like artists to be talking amongst themselves. Because we talk that talk like the certain language and we can share what it is that we're going through. So if I might be moodier, so you're like, this guy probably doesn't like painting a little bit, or he hasn't painted what he wanted to. So it's funny when you even describing the piece in the back when it comes to, screaming out that emotion, right? Sometimes inherently just in being not only a human being, but especially as an artist and having that balancing act of, and I actually have to shut this down because I have to tend to these emails, I have to tend to this invoice, and and to applying to to different venues or contests, whatever it may be, right? I think that piece, it jumps out to me because it also tells you like when to let go. And sometimes you have to go through a series of work in order to get to like the one that you didn't even know that you were going to be doing a month from now or so forth, right? There was this piece that I was working on, and it was like a lot of detail, and I think we talked about it. And most artists, we have like multiple works going on. I'll generally like do things to fit my mood. So if I'm like detail oriented at the time, I'll go and I'll work on eyes. I'll work on portraiture or iconographies, right? Or like threads and different things like that. If it's if I want to be loosey goosey and I just want to express myself and get out my energy and work with broad brush strokes and stuff, and layer things and explore, then that's where I may do, although what you just sat down and said, if you want to do landscapes or seascapes and stuff, I do those. And I love them. I love it.
There's no shame in it, but it's just hard to find like the galleries that, just different stuff. Different stuff.
Yeah, but sometimes I gotta do it to show my appreciation for like nature and do. So I recently, I know you do. You can't, really, come on, you can't tell me that you don't, right? But sometimes you gotta get that out of you, so then you can get on to what you're like, oh no, this is what I was really getting to, right? So when it comes to like the mixed medium pieces or so, like when you were describing chopping up the popsicle sticks, I know that feeling where you go, huh, yeah, I said that I was probably gonna take the path to least resistance, and I'm just leave the popsicle sticks whole.
Yeah.
I got you. I'm infested with this vision now, and I gotta get it out, right? And I'm gonna do it here, right? And I think that's one of the best feelings in the world, and I love going through it and saying, ooh, I didn't think that was gonna come out like this or go through and it was gonna come out quite like that. And I think it's I wish everybody could feel that, right? Do you ever have those time periods where you're like, do you know how good this feels? So that's why sometimes I'm a recluse, right? Where I love exhibiting. I love talking to people about arts, asking them what they're getting out of it, right? When they're looking at a piece of mine or a collection or so. But I love the process of just sheer creating and different things, of finding the magic within it. What's your favorite part of the process? Is it exhibiting, the creative part, we've got the administrative, putting things together? So another thing I gotta give you props before you answer.
Oh, okay.
It is, you know, I think the fellowship, right, the AOCA, right, you mentioned alignment. And so, is that something that when you set forth that quitting your job, firing your job,
Yeah.
right? And going and saying, you know what, this is where I'm going, this is where I'm geared towards. Did you set forth with the sense of alignment and they're like, hey, I got tunnel vision, I'm not taking these type of commissions, this is my price tag, this is what I'm working with.
Absolutely not. No, that did not happen.
That's real.
I didn't got a plan. I was just like, I mean, at the time I was doing so many pet portrait commissions but I also knew I was kind of sick of it. I was, I mean, dogs and cats, they're real cute and all, but like after a while, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And so, yeah. I don't even know. I'd have to count. I'm sure.
And they're good, and not to even, I mean, of course, right, but not to even mention, I mean, the cat cafe, like, right, in Plainville,
Oh,
right,
yeah.
right? So that was another, so my family, I'm a cat man, so, like, we got a few in the house. And so, we'll just go, we were going to the one down in New Haven,
Yeah.
but there was. The one that just opened up over in Plainville at the time, and so, watching on IG, ooh. I didn't have a chance to go there because I think ironically I was working on something administratively for like art wise. But my family was going. I said, yo, when you go there, check out the walls. I said, the man that did those, it's dope, right? I said, fire, but I'm not putting any cat murals up.
No cat murals.
Right? So anyway, how did I mean? Oh yeah, yeah.
I was talking about you asked me if I knew for sure, like, when I quit.
Yeah, if you were to go through sheer alignment.
I honestly though, I think my first year and a half, I think was me trying anything and everything that also would pay. I did like painting classes, like paint and sips. I did workshops at like Jerry's Artorama. I did art festivals, I did murals, I did like wedding painting, like just seeing what do I like, what's sticking.
You recently did some live wedding painting, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And also some other stuff
God
that's
bless
like
your soul. The pressure and like, going through, I mean, so you're talking about people's most memorable, that's when you talk about pressure. Oh my
Some
God.
pressure.
Yeah.
But it pays well.
Yeah.
But it's fun too.
And I think it might have prepared you for even like here, because how long did it take you over the span to like really get the collection in here to come together? Like, you put it in overdrive.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I know Erica and Cameron are like, where are these pieces, Amanda? And I was like, they're up here. That first painting, Disappearance, I did that in May, because I think that's when the Stowe Center was like, maybe paint something. I was like, and then honestly, the majority of these pieces, I think were all done between like September to November, or maybe August to November. Cause I think at that point, I actually do remember having one meeting here, and essentially they told me you gotta lock in. And I was like, heard.
Who told you that?
No, Karen told me to lock in. And I was
In
like.
my mind, Erica told you.
I mean, she was probably feeling it too. But that was something that was really different for me, is like, here are these people like cheering me on, and they're like, okay, but like, so what's this looking like? And I'm so used to having a deadline that's like, all right, I finished it the night before, here you go, but they wanted to see the process. And I was like, oh, I'm not used to showing people the process. And I was like, what if the process is bad? What if it's ugly?
what's
What if they
crazy-
don't like it?
But what's crazy is that you do whip works like when
Mm.
when you come together to like, market some of your pieces and put it out there and like you edit and everything, so.
Well, I'm trying to be better about that because I also do feel a little weird showing works in progress on social media. But I want to show it more,
Too.
but I do feel like, no, people are gonna think this is ugly. They're gonna be like, who pays this person to do this? Because I think I judge my works in progress,
Yeah,
at least
yeah, of
until I
course.
get to a certain point. And then I'm like, oh, this is good.
Yeah, right. It's crazy because one time I was working on this portrait of one of my favorite artists, Big Crit. And while I'm like painting him and stuff, I'm like, he kind of looks like J. Cole. I was like, well, I can't show this part, like, so so it's crazy while you're creating, and especially when it comes to any level of portraiture or like objectivity, something that somebody has a reference for, and then when you throw it out there, like, hey, yeah, this is what this is supposed to be, and then it could easily come back and say, no, the hell it's not, or,
Yeah.
but I think another level of vulnerability in saying like, oh, I already know, and I think that's the essence of us as artists, just like comedians, right? It's like, when we can bare our soul and talk about what it is, like we identify, and largely we're our worst critic, right? And if we could put it out there and convey that, then it opens it up for other people to see us for what it is and understand the rigor of the creative process and how it's this teetering on letting yourself go, experimenting, and then also getting down to certain concrete objectivity of things that you're trying to portray, which is, a whole nother level, right? So, one of the bold moves that you've done when it comes to what I admire you for is like you'll share like, this is how much I made over the last 2 years.
Oh, that was so
And it has
scary. That was so scary.
And it has increased, but it's real though, and I think that it's a way of folks to identify and say, dang, do you know folks that will want to at least be able to express themselves to as like, if I can even get half of what Amanda just made, like I'm doing something, right? If I can at least get an ounce of that, right? So the amount of what you do for others to be able to identify whether they're visual fine artists or not, but just the fact that you say, hey, this is what I do. I think we live in the age of like transparency, right? To exactly what we're talking about. So I think the more you can bring folks into your world, the more magical it is. And it kind of opposes what historically artists have gone. So to your point, like even me, I said, I don't know the last time that I posted really, and so I'm like, yeah, no, just be like working. Cause again, I get such a kick out of, the creative process, but at the same time, I ain't gonna lie, you also get a little bit bashful about it, right? And it can be cumbersome to a certain degree, or I want to have it manicured a certain way, right? Or I'm like, I want some other pieces to go along with this. It's not quite right, right? So that's how it's funny you express working under such a tight deadline with your back up against the wall. For me, I had like this plethora of work, and I'm like, oh, thank God, I have a place for it to go and stuff. And I'm like taking stuff out of the van. Cat comes out with the blue gloves and is like, here, she goes, you take it. And so I said, it's like, Cat, you just grab this. Are you sure you want these back to back? And grab them. They're so she used one of my favorite words that I got for you artists are so cavalier. And so it's ingrained in my mind. I was like, oh, I love that. Right. So just the ability to I'll be excited for you, especially now with work like this, when you start like moving on to your catalog, what you'll be willing to let go, so you got the business acumen. So when I came in, you got the prints that are there, you got the stickers that are there. I was like, well, I can take a little bit of everything with me as these reminders. So you're in my office, right? At work. I got you posted on there because it just brings a certain sense of serenity, and it's a reminder when I'm in these intimate spaces and connecting with people, like, you're the work that inspires me, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, so I got my work all over the place, but I gotta slip in a piece of a man to have. For sure.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. It really, truly does.
Sharing your gift. Speaking of sharing, I think it's about that time. I'm not sure if anybody, this is a great audience because folks was just throwing out questions already or doing disease checks, especially when it comes to. So I will say this, please don't shame me. I'm one who for a while, I largely will work in oil, take my time. I'll have paintings drying in there with like linseed oil and, odor-free, paint thinner or terpenoid. It's not odor-free for real. And I'll probably make my wife sick and stuff, other than making her sick. And so sitting there, I'm like, yeah, maybe I should take this downstairs. So, yeah, you're doing the right thing by not crashing these things.
I need to take an oil painting class, just to like understand it, figure it out, I don't know.
I know you'll work magic with it. It'll be great. Yeah. But any questions?
That's the Q&A portion.
Yeah.
I know what the fellowship was, but I don't know if everybody else does. Can
Yeah.
you describe what that is?
Yeah, in fact, applications just opened today. So the Artist of Color Accelerate Fellowship, is a fellowship run by the 224 Ecospace, which is about like, I don't know, a couple blocks from here. And so I randomly saw it on Instagram, a post, that it was a fellowship based on focusing on artists of color and providing them a bunch of like entrepreneurship, sort of workshops and classes, and also bringing in artists of all different like kinds. So it wasn't just visual art, it was like dancers, photographers, and they did like a taxes class, people just sharing their stories of how they built their business. And so I think it was a group of 10 fellows, so I was one of them. And essentially how the partnership works is, while the 224 Ecospace is the people who have the grant, so they do provide a stipend to the fellows, each of the fellows over the course of like 6 months, even though it could last up to the year. There is a host organization that has agreed to take you on as their fellow. So the 224, I think, is one of the host organizations, and the Stowe Center graciously chose me as their fellow for last year. And essentially you're supposed to create a community art project, using those funds and through that partnership. And it's just supposed to help elevate you or accelerate you as an artist of color, because as we know, people of color are often, there are more barriers for artists of color to do things like this. But yeah, there's many other host organizations. It's not just the Stowe Center. I know the theater that's here. Oh, the Bushnell Theater is part of one of the hosts. The 224.
I think the Museum of American Art.
Yeah, and so the applications literally just opened today. So if you go on Instagram and follow the AOCA fellowship, the links would be there, or I guess if you go on the 224 Ecospace website, that should be there too. They might be shifting things. I know they got I think a $2 million grant recently. So I know they're trying to double the amount of fellows that they take on. I was technically the 3rd cohort, so it's only been running for 3 years, but they have big plans. And yeah, if anyone has questions about the fellowship, feel free to chat, message me. But yeah, it's very cool meeting other artists. There's another fellow here too.
Yeah,
Where'd he go?
left.
The left. The left was the fellow in my cohort as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were doing cool stuff. Great question though. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, it's a question from the kids, and so I told them that I would ask you today. So we have when students come for their tour, they come and they have been enjoying their exhibit for the last people. And on this poster, on this painting, it says, "Fuck them kids." So, what the students asked, I was trying
Yeah, no, great question. I mean, so, in a not so funny way, so that piece in particular has like stats and names of people who've been impacted by ICE. It also has quotes, that I had witnessed from videos, captured of ICE, members, things that they've said. So literally, in one of the videos that I watched, ICE guy said like, "Fuck them kids," essentially. And so there's random quotes in there that I've collected from these supposedly federal employees that our taxes are paying for their salaries, you know? And I also try to purposefully put like the really dark, negative things that were said in specifically the shadows of the folds of the flag. So that's, I think that the "fuck them kids" is like that triangle shadow underneath the thumb of the fist. I think that's where that is, if I remember correctly. And yeah, so if they ever ask, now you know that it's not me saying that. I'm simply recording what ICE employees have said in videos, and they don't care that they said those things. And so yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Also good question. Yes.
I have two questions. One, and I would like, speaking of those kids, so by the way, if guests don't know, the Stowe Center is giving, we have an inheriting freedom tour. It's a special tour for children, and for families, and we're giving, this tour to every fifth grader in all of Hartford. So like, we just had one group this morning, for example, and I remember, I just want to say that there was one student, I think her name was Sky, and she had this really cool comment. I don't know if you guys have seen this painting, but her cool comment was, these are like ancestors' roots that's getting deep in the ground, and it's like, are these like sister paintings? And all of us in Stowe are like, so gagged. Yeah. I'm just like, oh.
You gotta love kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't, necessarily look at pieces and think that they were necessarily sister, but I guess I thought of them as a family of each other, especially if I'm like kind of reusing this concept of like nature, the earth, the roots. And I think in my sketch of the treehouse one, I did have more roots drawn on that tree, and I don't know if I did as much as the sketch had, because I just, conceptually, I guess as I was doing it, I was like, it probably only needs this much. But I do like to think of us as like our homes and our families and our stories are these like roots that we've planted here. Hence why I wanted ancestral roots, to have the sneaky portrait of like a side profile of a face on there, because there are generations in my family that like, I don't even know them. I don't know their names. I don't know their stories, but I know like they've left prints on the land. And while yes, my family, I'm a first generation here, so these are new footprints, I guess, for us, within the US. But I think we all have our family's generations roots implanted in the soil. And so with American Dream in particular, I just felt like I wanted to demonstrate the unfairness of why do certain people's trees get to flourish, and others who can't. So I guess one could argue they are sister paintings. And I guess it just happened naturally. I didn't really think that way.
Yeah, I'll think it. And I did have my own personal questions for both of you. It's the idea, like, I think as people who at the Stowe Center here, who we talk about literature a lot, and sometimes I will personally say, like, sometimes I feel like I get lost this idea of like an artist as like this like cooped up person. Magical ideas and just were like they're like so interesting and like they could just like connect and like have all these passions to write these like long novels and it just like flows out of them.
I like the
That's,
way
like,
you
from God.
rocked this around, because you weren't off to a good start. Started to go on like what I usually, that quintessential artist and that like we don't handle our business. But I like this, I'm sorry.
Yeah. But we just like, we're like the idea of like a person who like is like, you know, like the person's like, you know, like, I have a life and I just can't get to that right now. Or like I am tired or the ideas of just like, I don't want to do this. But I don't know, like how do you kind of like face the ideas of like the idealism of I guess of like in this like stereotype and this archetype of an artist versus like the real reality of your own personal experience. Hopefully that made some sense.
That made great sense. You wanna go first?
Let me, well, actually, how are you?
I got
Yeah, you go first. I need a ponder.
So it's great, so as a super introvert, despite how long-winded I am, and how much I can talk, right? I loved, so although I was giving you shit. I am him. I love to just be by myself and like be cooped up. And express, and so like days on end, so I can stay in one area, right? It's my monk mode, like, so I can stay, I don't have to eat. I don't have to, so I can go a cool, 24 hours. And what's crazy is that, so when you, and having kids, I see, so in looking at my son, he's the same way. So my wife will say, hey, it's time to eat, you're gonna eat? And no, mama, I'm working on something, food will go cold, and it's like, so I can identify and I understand, I say, yeah. And people will come and try to say, hey, just come and say, hey, I'm like, yeah, hi, whatever. And he'll go to his siblings who are like twice his age and stuff, and they're like, yo, what's wrong with him? And I gotta break it down like, yo, and so, well, actually, I don't say anything, I laugh. But my wife will say, he's his father, like, he's doing what David does, and so I like it, so I love it. Yeah, there are times, especially when I come from work, but so that's the sick part about me, right? That's the sick side of me, is I love my advising role, right? I love connecting with people. And I could do that probably, I do it day in and day out, right? I love building structures, I love connecting with people. But it allows me to use my art as the carrot. So it's my super incentive, and it's weird. So it's like, when I was like, despite my physique now, when I was like a heavy like gym rat and stuff, I would look forward to certain workouts. I would run from cardio at the time, right? But then you start to, and I would earn my way to a certain machine, right? So I have this weird tick in my brain where I have to earn my way. So I have to get through. So like I was describing with this Willow Tree series that I was doing, I get through those. So then I can come around and I can work on, Madam CJ Walker. Right, I gotta get through this so that I can come around and I can work on this surrealist piece, right? Because I can't wait but I gotta earn it, or I gotta get this out, or maybe there's a direct correlation where I'm practicing the technique that's gonna leak over. So that's how I muster up the energy to do so. And then I always say, if I don't dedicate time to it, I feel like I'm letting God down, to be real. Like that's I feel like I'm squandering, and I couldn't do that. So yeah.
Interesting. I guess I am more of an extroverted person. I feel like I procrastinate all the time. I'm the person that like, oh, my friends want to hang out, my brothers want to hang out. Oh, okay, I'll do that later. And then I feel it later, right? Because then the deadlines are happening and everything. And I don't know. I feel like there are times that I don't what's the word I'm looking for? I'm trying to like, can you like repeat the question again? Like, can we,
I guess what I was really trying to get at the heart of, I feel like there's all these ideas and archetypes about what an artist is.
Mhm.
Especially coming from like a 19th like century, kind of like a Lord Byron romantic poet, who's just like, oh my God, I'm in nature, I'm gonna write this like huge poem, I'm gonna become famous, and I'm gonna be like amazing. And then, but like, actually, they're actually like horrible people. But I guess like there's all these like stereotypes and archetypes about artists, and that like almost seem that almost make themselves like godlike or almost like superhuman versus like the real reality of like the hard disciplinary work of art.
Or what you're talking about, I think, is being of service, right? And so, like, so for me, sometimes I could be selfish and be a service. So that's why I took the journey. Is like, so where Amanda had described, like, oh, I have these commissions in order to like bust out. I'm like, no, people ain't getting my time like that. And I can say, I'm gonna say no, because I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. This thing that I also like to do when I get up in the morning, all right, yeah, no, cool, I'm gonna go back to this. So it forces me to have a certain level of alignment. The other thing too that you tapped into is so I can be self-serving, but then also when there's alignment like here, right, in certain projects. So when the collaboration with like Kimura's Cultural Corner and doing that, one of the most joyous moments, because, and I think that's what's special about this space, I'm not just gassing everybody, but I mean it, right? Is because you feel the energy, the great ideas, you guys are geniuses in your own rights in the way that you share and you go about things, and your respect for history and what it is. So what's at the core of who I am is preservation. So if I can preserve something, a piece of something, and it can be heralded in a certain way to anybody, it means the world, right? So that's one of my other ticks. We talked about like time is a familiar thing that's there, but then like the portrait of Dorian Gray comes to mind, right? When you talk about like how deep do you go when you're, conveying something you don't want to. So sometimes, so Amanda talks about being an extrovert, and she probably feeds off of different things that inform her work, right? And then there's that collision between who I am, what I'm feeling, how I'm going to portray this, and then how the people around me are, right?
yeah,
Right?
I feel like I find how people respond to my art, or maybe if I'm posting on social media, does impact me. Like or in a way that, I mean, I see some artists, right, who they like their stuff on Instagram, let's say, looks very polished, like almost like, I don't know, like a film director was there filming it. They're wearing their model clothes. They're like, oh, and I remember I posted a video of me eating a waffle while I was painting. Like, cause I was trying to be silly. Like, I was like, I'm eating my waffle syrup as I'm painting. And sometimes I get self-conscious, like, cause I do want to be authentic and real. And sometimes that means being emotional. But then sometimes you see like, oh, no one commented on this, or this video didn't do that well. And then I'm like, did I say too much? Like cause especially with pieces like this that are a bit, they can be dark, it can be emotional. And also, I mean, the fear of like, if I post this on Instagram, like, is ICE gonna come knocking on my door? Like, if I'm being really upfront and honest about what I wanna say, there was just so many things going on in my head, but there's a part of me that is kind of like, I mean, you've been swearing, so like, fuck that, like, I'm an artist, like, I wanna be 100% authentic to what this is, and if people like rock with that, then cool, and if people don't, then I guess like, I mean, art's subjective, like, it is what it is. And yeah, so I guess I struggle sometimes with social media's view of success of an artist, and like how do artists look? And I don't know, I prefer like the messier the artist, like the more I connect with them, and but it's hard because not everyone's doing it, so you get vulnerable.
Yeah, no, that's real. And to tie in that thing also, not to like, right, and what you just described, there's no like quintessential, like, or like this this prototype, right? You know, like Steve Jobs, right? Considered himself, he didn't consider himself like a computer scientist or even an entrepreneur. He considered himself an artist, right? A very demanding one, and everyone, God bless his soul, right? But that's what he was creating when he created something that was functional, that was fit for human beings. When we talk about whether or not you're an Android or a Apple like user, so right. But it was so that we can seamlessly go about our lives in a certain way. He gave us something that we didn't even know that we wanted, and I think that's what you did. Like that's what I was like, oh, I didn't know that my soul needed this, right? I know that there might be another. I gotta ask this question because it ties into what was said about. Sorry, I'm getting this to sing. The curating. How did you come up with the sequence and how things were like laid out? Because it didn't dawn on me until the sister paintings were mentioned between the roots and then the tree that's over here, and I'm like, oh yeah, they speak to each other, right? You got one in color, one that's more in black and white, right? But then even going around, I'm like, oh man, the cohesiveness of it is just, it's really, really sharp.
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of meetings throughout like the last year. Gamza had joined it. Oh, where'd Gamza go? But she's our project researcher for the exhibit. So all of her research is actually, if you scan the QR code or go on stowcenter.org/human, she has like a whole timeline about like the history of human rights within the US. And so it all pairs very nicely together. But yeah, we're trying to have conversations about, I mean, I'm still trying to figure out the art and the message, but like, cause I was trying to think of a title but ultimately I think it came to just posing it as a question, because I don't know the answer to like, what does it mean to be human? I could come up with it myself, but like, I didn't want to like say it so explicitly, like in words. And so, yeah, so I guess once we walked through this space and I took photos, and I was trying to think about, okay, how many paintings could fit in this space? It just kind of made sense to put questions on each wall, which I guess in some ways, I don't know, my brain was wired to think I want people to walk in a certain direction within this space, because it's like a linear, almost like a story.
Direction.
Yeah, linear direction, story.
We're supposed to start that way.
Yeah, so there would have been like a sign here that says enter through the left, and then you wrap around
That's right, yeah.
the wall and end up here. And yeah, so and then I did that on my tablet too. I put like where I thought the questions would be on the wall, and then where would the paintings fit around those questions. Yeah.
I went backwards and it was still powerful. I went backwards and I went forward.
It's not the way.
I went forward, you know.
Yeah,
So.
but no, that's fair,
Awesome. Well, Amanda, thank you so very much. This is awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And hopefully didn't yap too much, but hopefully got a lot out of it, because this was a great exhibit, and you did this environment justice, and you really captured the spirit of what does it mean to be human, and especially here at Stowe. So I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Before I just want to say thank you both so much for doing this. Just like thank you. Thank you. And for our closing event, which will be on Saturday, May 16th, it's going to be called El Teteo in Harriet's backyard. So all the way up there, when the gates will be out and everything, and we're going to be having basically like a huge block party with like a car gathering. They'll be blasting music. There'll be motorcycles out here around this lane with cars outside the Stowe Center building. We'll have tabling from so many different different organizations from across Hartford and across Connecticut.
We're gonna have dominoes, we're gonna have food tables, we're gonna have brica, we're gonna have people and food and just music and excitement. So really and truly, as we're closing out this event of what does it mean to be human, we're really thinking about Nahum and Marianji and Amanda, thinking about us being human together and enjoying the space together. So please come and enjoy it with us.
Yeah. So yes, thank you so much for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you to anybody online. If you're still like-
Air claps, right? Air claps.
Thanks, you're such a great